Hey everyone, James Azar here with Tech Corner for this week. Before we get started though, a big shout out to our sponsor KnowBe4, who will be joining me is their one and only security advocate. I am very, very sorry here, folks. I'm having a bit of technical difficulties. Jacqueline, Jayne, welcome back. How are you doing on the other side of the world?
I'm really well, thank you, James. It's lovely down here. It's a bit cold, so I'm liking that. How about you?
I am enjoying the bipolar Georgia weather, which is
Ah,
rain on one day, 90 degrees the next day, rain for 4 days, then sunshine for 4 days. It feels like they trade off.
there's nothing wrong with that. You get all the clothes to wear in one day.
Yeah, yeah, or like in one week. You know,
Yes.
it's very funny because in before we get into today's before we get into today's tech corner, one very interesting note of all of this. It seems like when the height of COVID-19 was going on, it was cold. It was, like at least here on above the equator line, right? It
Yes.
was winter. And so it was dark and gloomy, and there was this deadly virus out there, and people felt like, the world's about to end. And now you look outside and it's sunny and it's nice, although today is not so much. And people are like, this virus is over. And it's amazing how just a change in weather
Mm-hmm.
can really.
We're on the flip side.
Yeah, you guys are on the flip side.
Yeah,
It's fall in Australia.
that's right. And we're in my state. We've got 13 days straight with no COVID-19 people at all in our whole state. 1.7 million people. So we're nearly COVID-19 free. Nearly.
Nearly. I,
Nearly.
I'm excited to see how this this whole thing plays out over the next year or so until there's some sort
Yeah.
of either herd immunity or vaccine. And not
Yeah.
excited for the loss of life, but excited to see how humans adapt.
Correct.
So we are going to be talking today about from zero to hero and IT's leverage post this COVID-19 to really start becoming going from a no culture to a yes culture and really kind of letting their place know, um, letting their place be known in the organization. And so we always talk about I think cybersecurity in that aspect of being a team responsibility. It can't be just on the CISO or the security team. It's really got to be everyone's responsibility. Um, but the question here is, why is cybersecurity under IT if it's across the entire organization?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I think it comes from historically, it was all about technology. And then as the interweb or the interwebs, as they call it, came into the world and then cybersecurity came in, it seemed to logically sit with IT. And it was the geeks, in inverted commas, who were the knowledgeable ones when it came to that hacking back in the day. And back in the day, the hackers were the young kids in the basement of mum and dad's house. It's not so much like that anymore at all. Everything has changed, the whole landscape's changed. And as a result, the responsibility for cyber has shifted from traditionally IT to be everyone's responsibility. Not even just at work, James. We're talking at home, we're talking kids, we're talking family, everybody. As soon as we have a device, Internet of Things, mobiles, everybody needs to have an understanding and take responsibility for cyber.
Yeah, I feel like cyber is cross organizational, and COVID-19 has just proved it, right? Because cyber has gone beyond a firewall,
It
beyond
has.
antivirus. It's your data, it's compliance. It has so many aspects to it. It falls under legal, it falls under so much. So when you look at kind of, this whole zero to hero thing, JJ, where do you feel like IT professionals should be, and what's the questions they should be asking, and how should they be leveraging this?
Well, I think if you were to ask a group of IT professionals what they think their users, what do your users think you do for their job, I don't think many people actually could articulate what IT do. Most of them would say, well, they fix the printer, they put new toner in, they download software, they help me when things don't work, they do some troubleshooting for me, when in fact it's a whole lot more than that. And I think because of what's happened with COVID-19 and our switch to the remote work in a very fast track manner, we've given ourselves an opportunity now for general users to be paying more attention to IT and understand the complexities of what they're dealing with day by day. So gone are the days when you'd wait for IT to come and fix it. We've all been there. Some of us learnt over time. We had our steps for troubleshooting, and now being remote and being completely away from everybody, I think IT have been able to step up that little bit more and provide that guidance and help and support for people when it comes to their IT. And the flip side is the same. If you were to ask IT what someone in accounting does or what someone in HR does, they would say they hire us, pay us, fire us, and put us through training. And HR, for example, here in Australia do so much more than that. And I know globally it would be the same. HR don't just do those three things. So the pivot that's been required has given IT, in my opinion, a unique opportunity to position themselves in a very different light. And I was reading a report that Kaspersky did recently. They surveyed 6,000 remote workers, and 73% of them, so a lot, are waiting for cybersecurity guidance from their employers. That says a lot to me. What do you think?
It's funny you ask me that question. I feel like that's like the ultimate almost challenge in a lot of organizations today. This COVID-19 came out of nowhere.
I've lost your sound, James. Sorry.
Have you lost my sound? How about now?
Yep.
All right. So I think now with the kind of COVID-19 thing, a lot of employers have really not addressed security, sent people to work from home with their own devices,
Yep.
and have really disabled IT from doing anything outside of ensuring that people can access the network. And that's a problem, a significant one at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a unique opportunity here for security to really go across the entire enterprise, which was not something that it could have done before this. It would have been a challenge to do it before this. It'd take a very skilled CISO, it'd take a very skilled security team, and a very open-minded executive leadership for it to happen. Now that IT's able to really kind of step in, IT and I mean cybersecurity, Infosec is able to really step in, there's a whole aspect to that's going to be different.
Well, people are being proactive and reaching out to IT for advice on how to keep safe from a cyber point of view. We don't need to go through all the statistics again, but we know how prevalent the cyber threat landscape has been with the COVID-19 introduction. So we can visually see what's going on in that world, and that has really added in an element of fear and heightened awareness when it comes to those people working from home. And rather than just find out for themselves, because there's big consequences, and we're seeing it in the media here, and I know globally, there's been a big shift in how many reports and how many data breaches are made and how many scams are occurring. So people are reaching proactively out to IT and asking for something that they're probably never asked for before. So therefore, I think there's an opportunity for IT to be seen in that guidance light, that people are willing to learn more than they ever have now. And IT can be that great leader and position themselves as the helper, the hero when it comes to cyber and keeping people safe.
So I agree with that. I think the challenge that exists in that realm is not everyone who's in IT understands security. Not everyone in security understands IT. Legacy, outdated IT systems tend to cause more challenges and more problems for all parties involved. And we know
Yep.
that a lot of organizations still operate on legacy systems. And what that does is it creates a very unique challenge, especially in COVID-19. So it's very interesting. I had on our CISO Talk podcast, I had the VP of Cyber Fraud and Data Analytics for E-Trade. And
Wow.
we were chatting, and before the podcast, Kosar and I were talking about COVID-19 and BYOD. And Kosar works for a Fortune 1000 E-Trade, huge investment firm. And she goes, James, what are you hearing? And I said, you really want to know what I'm hearing? People are having a hard time today with their security for several reasons. One of which is not a lot of organizations were giving their employees devices. They were operating off of desktops and offices. And when people had to go home, these people didn't have their devices, and they were operating on legacy systems. So not only were they on desktops in the office and had no remote access to anything, now they're in a whole different place, right? And in the place that they're in, they're having to deal with so much more. They got to get legacy systems somehow available to the users.
Yep.
And they got to get the users not to get frustrated with the systems because they're sitting at home trying to do their jobs. And it takes a unique set of challenges between InfoSec, IT, and the end user, i.e. the employee, the contractor, or whoever, to really bring those pieces together. And I think that's the challenge, where this is where you go from a zero to a hero. What do you think?
Yeah. Absolutely. And all the things you've just mentioned there's, from what my observations have been, there's been an increase in trust between the IS in general, IT in general, and that cybersecurity element, being that helper and that advisor, that trusted advisor. When we have trust, we can quite easily take the next step into that engagement. So I've been thinking about some thoughts about how IT could actually go about doing this, because it isn't their natural instinct to go through all of those details. But I had a look at change management frameworks, and with a baseline of trust, engagement can begin. And that revolves heavily around the what's in it for me. So even if it's a BYOD, legacy systems, whatever it is, as long as the individual has a really clear understanding of why it's happening, the importance of it happening, and the things that it could affect them, things to consider, and also the valid reasons as to why this needs to happen. And most importantly, why it's important to me as an individual and my role, and then obviously the greater strategic guidelines of the company. That's where people can really understand what's going on. So if IT are able to instruct with good communication, which isn't easy, but it can make such a difference. And I'm sure you've had the experience when assumptions come into play, everybody knows not to do X, Y, Z. That's just not the case. People have to be told clearly and not be talked to. They need to be talked with and asking those relevant questions that make sense, that can take IS down that path, so that rather than people have to say, you have to stop doing shadow IT and bypassing all our systems, which I have heard many times. Firstly, the general person does not know what shadow IT is. They literally will think of a shadow on a wall. What they need to understand is something like it has come to our attention that you need to store a large amount of image files somewhere, and a couple of our departments need access to it. Is that right? Same thing, different words, conversation begins. So now the person is more likely to say, well, yes, Mr. IT person, that is exactly what we need to do. And the same goes for cyber. Imagine if rather than saying, stop clicking on suspicious emails, we went with the explanation of what cyber criminals are doing, why they do it, how they do it, explain what is phishing. Don't just assume, because I can tell you people still don't know. Those that you would think should understand what phishing is as we know it, they don't. And then here's some examples. Here's what it looks like. And here's the downside of should you engage with these phishing emails, and talk about what happens next. I've seen a room full of people with their aha moments when someone can talk to them about what actually happens when you've clicked or handed over your credentials. It's incredible to see because they have no idea. And this is an opportunity for cyber, for IT, for IS, InfoSec, whatever you want to call it, to step forward with their people, with their users, their internal customers, and offer that opportunity to be the heroes in this space. Because I guarantee you those people will go home and talk to lots of others and also be seen as the hero. So IT is even better in everybody's eyes.
Yeah, that's you bring up a great point, which is IT really, InfoSec, cyber, IT all need to step up across the entire enterprise. And in times of crisis, one of two things happen. Either people come together or people split apart.
Yep.
And in this specific scenario, you would hope that people come together. Overcoming, I think, the challenges of legacy systems, of so many companies now transitioning to the cloud, is bringing so much more work for IT, for InfoSec, and for the business units, because they're starting to see more and more stuff kind of leave legacy systems, and operationally it doesn't operate how it's supposed to for them. and that brings a whole discussion around, well, how do you transition to the cloud without having any downtime? And you're like, well, do it on a Saturday.
Yeah.
But in COVID-19, so you make a good point though. And let's dig a little bit deeper on that, which is the whole idea of IT being a consultative arm to the rest of the company.
Yeah. Well, at the moment, if you think about it, people are a bit frozen with what to do. A lot of countries are looking to transition back to some form of new normal. We'll never go back to normal, which is, I think, great because there's opportunities there. So as they're looking at how do we bring our people back from the remote work situation to the office, that is where I can predict that people will be looking to everybody from that corporate element, from that IT point of view, from that cyber point of view, from that HR point of view, for instructions and directions. Even though we're adults, even though we can make our own decisions, I've been very surprised, including myself, when it came to, do I send my child to school or not, when I had that choice. Even though the health people said it's fine to send them, I had a lot of people that I knew and on social media saying, no, don't send them, it's bad. You really don't know what to do. And if someone could say to me, JJ, send him to school, he'll be fine, it'd be, oh, phew, thank you. This is one of those situations where people are going to be wanting information. They're going to need some guidance, a checklist. They're going to need steps to follow. Do they bring everything back to the office? Do they have two sets of equipment? How is it all going to work? What's the safest way to take information from one place to the other? So because people want information, if no one provides it, they will go and find it. And scary, they'll go to the wrong places and they'll say, oh yes, my friend who works down the road, he said that we need to do these 5 things. Don't worry about that. We can plug in USBs. It'll be okay. It's not necessarily the case. Without guidelines, without clear instructions, without an understanding of why we're doing what we're doing, it's a business partnership between the IS, InfoSec, all of those things, especially cyber, because it does affect every element of the organisation. And we've even seen here just recently, I'll just have a tangent for a moment, we had a large company with 13,000 customers. They were breached just only last week, and it turns out it was because of the remote work shift. So they found how the breach occurred, and it was just that uncertainty of people that are working in a different environment, and they're not paying attention, so they've clicked on an email. So now's the opportunity to say, here's what's happening. We know how hard this is, and we want to help you. And I can tell you, users, internal customers, whatever you want to call them, even corporate, the C-suite, they will be so appreciative of someone, being the IT department, in cyber, whatever the different elements are. They have a clear understanding and they'll feel more comfortable to pretty much be guided in the way that IT would like them to do it, which I know at the end of the day is for very good reasons. So to me, that's something that just, it's exciting. And I really do hope that IT take it on board and run with it and make those differences. My concern is I don't know if they have the skills, whether they need to bring other people in and create a team. What's your thoughts on that from your experience?
So I'm going to address your points and kind of, it feels like you're almost interviewing me instead of me interviewing you, JJ.
Yeah, there was a lot there, James. I'm sorry about that.
No, and it's okay. And there was a lot there. So let's first of all kind of start with the last thing you said, right? Which is, you got to hire and onboard people. And we've all seen, and I've spoken to so many people who have started a new position during COVID with a Zoom training as their orientation and a bunch of different Zoom calls as part of, kind of like their welcome aboard with the different stakeholders as part of someone's onboarding.
Yep.
But then there exists the challenge of we hired someone completely remote. That's very, very different from what we're used to doing.
Yep.
We're sending this person equipment. We are wanting to trust this person who's a new hire, even though we really don't know this person. And it brings up the whole idea, we're talking about zero to hero. Well, I hate to throw out this buzzword. It's buried somewhere in my backyard, but I'm going to go dig it up for a minute. Zero trust.
Yep.
How does that play into this whole aspect? And who does that apply to? Right? There's this whole discussion around zero trust and who do you give zero trust to? I'm not an advocate for zero trust. In fact, I hate that word even exists within our vocabulary as security practitioners, because I feel like the whole concept of zero trust puts us in a very, very bad light across the entire enterprise.
Yeah, and I think talking about trust has been interesting. There was, when all of the remote work happened very quickly, there was one particular post on LinkedIn which went, I think the word is viral. I don't really like that. However, it was very popular. And what occurred was an organization decided to install some what would you call it, recording devices or things to really have a high check-in on what their people were doing at home. They didn't trust their people. And there was uproar because we're all adults. And I think if we're treated like children, we'll behave like children. So from the zero trust perspective, I wouldn't want to work for an organization that felt that way. Luckily, I don't. The level of trust provided to us at KnowBe4 is remarkable, but it is supported and underpinned by very clear policies, clear communication, a high-level engagement. There is no element of question. Everything is available. There's a lot of information. So there's no I don't have an issue of trust when it comes to my employer, and I know they don't with their people. So I think the trust but verify comes into play. If you're going to give someone access to certain things, then this is a unique opportunity for IT. And I know these things take time, so it's not as easy as let's just change everyone's permissions tomorrow. But it's a great time to say, we need to do some things to streamline your experience as an employee, rather than saying we need to change your permissions. So that trust element, it has to be based on a conversation. It has to be a two-way thing. So if IT want trust from the people and vice versa, they're going to have to show it. People say you earn trust. I personally disagree with that. Everyone is given that trust, and it's for them to look after it and for them to nurture it.
So those are two.
There's a clear slate.
So let me stop you there. So those are two different perspectives on life. That's a viewpoint, right? Some
Yeah.
people say
Yeah.
you earn trust. Some people say I give you trust until you break it. And
Yeah.
there's that line. Our kids, we give them trust and they
Yep.
continually break it and we still trust them. In fact, it
Because
takes
they're learning.
That's what we say to ourselves.
Good
Right.
point. Yeah. Good note to
Because there
self.
are
Learning.
because there are kids. We don't
Yeah.
want to think of our kids as being untrustworthy people.
Yep.
And from someone who comes from an Intel background, right? I trust no one, right? You don't even trust the agencies you work with or for, because you realize that everyone has a different interest in something. In organizations, though, like life, like team sports, everyone comes together for one common goal, right? At KnowBe4, I've met the team, and I'll say it not just because you guys are on the show. I've said it to a lot of people offline as well. It's a cohesive team working for one giant effort. There's clear goal and direction. They operate like Barcelona does, like Manchester United does, like the New England Patriots do, in that aspect of they're very well coached, trained, people are very mission focused, and there's a sense of camaraderie, teamwork, and so forth. And so you realize that with your employer, as you just stated, I don't have that issue. That's an organizational culture that starts from Stu and comes all the way down.
Yeah, that's right.
In other organizations, though, leadership dictates that I trust no one. I operate on that model. Things are in different containers and spheres, so everything is very, very isolated. And bringing us into zero to hero, when IT is its own container, and I'm going to use cloud terminology going forward because I feel like we need to hammer that terminology in people's heads at this point.
Okay.
If you're putting IT in one container, and you're not allowing them to see anything else that's going on in your bucket in your cloud, you're not allowing them to do their job. Same thing with cyber. A lot of times people will stick cyber in its own container and allow cyber just make sure our firewall, our antivirus, and our MFA work, look over logs, monitor, and that's that. And that's not security, right? That's checkbox security. That's saying, yeah, we do all the things you have on your checklist so we can do business. That goes to leadership. And when we talk from zero to hero, the underlying tone to that is leadership. It takes a unique set of skills. It takes leaders to step up to the plate, to go across the enterprise, to empower InfoSec and IT, and then break that stigma. We all remember, we've all worked in offices where you'd see the IT guy walk the floor and you're like, uh-oh, here comes the IT guy, right?
Yep.
And it's almost like the principal walking across the hall in school. You're like, what classroom is he going to? What class? Oh, he went into Mrs. Jayne's classroom. Oh my God. Who's in trouble?
It's the tech police. It's the police. They're going to tell me not to do something.
Exactly. And now is the time to really change that, because let's be honest, 20 years ago, it was IT that people feared. Now it's security. Now people see the security team come down and they're just like, okay, here comes the paranoid guys that don't trust anything online.
And James, that's so unfortunate, because it's that fear, false evidence appearing real. Fear is in our own minds.
But that's our fault. That's our fault.
Exactly.
That's our fault.
If IT said, guys, let's take the fear away. Let's empower our internal customers, our users, with information. Let's educate them. Let's give them an opportunity to learn from all of this. I mean, people have learnt Zoom. The amount of internal conversations I have with myself in relation to how extraordinary it is that millions and millions of people worked out how to use Zoom because of COVID-19 and remote working. If we could turn back time, got a share in my head now, I don't believe as many people would uptake Zoom from their workplace because the workplace asked them to. It's been flipped. Everything's flipped. So now we have a chance for cybersecurity to really come to the forefront. And as you've mentioned, people learned quickly about Zoom because they were thrown on a Zoom call. Here it is, click here, off you go. When we bring in that empowerment and opportunity for IT to say to all of their users, we have got all of this stuff happening over here in IT. Here's what we do. So actually explain to people all the things on a high level of what IT do and how they're actually protecting their customers. They care. They actually do care about the systems, the data, and everything working as it should. Then you bring them on that journey of here's why we need to understand about cyber and take them through all the things, get them to practice. There's, a contentious conversation at the moment about should we be providing simulations of phishing templates that are COVID-19 related? Is that unfair? It's absolutely the right thing to do because that's what's happening in real life. It's akin to saying, okay, so we're going to get you to use Teams, but we're going to actually use Zoom. So we need you to understand Teams, but you need to be using Zoom on your call tomorrow. It makes no sense. You need to be using what's happening out there. It needs to be real. People need to understand the complexities and be given a chance to learn. I think at the moment there's an enormous increase of people going onto online learning. It's not that they have extra time on their hands. They're realizing that the amount of emails that people were getting before, meetings we all had to go to, they weren't necessary. So there's actually time available to us. And IT can make an opportunity or take an opportunity to be that person giving them the solutions. And if we can do that and be that business partner, we can go from zero to hero, because I don't actually think it's as bad as zero, but there's a great opportunity for people to actually shift from being the, oh my God, here's the principal, to excellent, what is IT going to help me with today? If we can shift that, we're laughing.
Yeah, and that's a very ambitious goal.
Sounds gone again.
Sounds gone again? How about now?
No.
I am going to... How about now? So sound is... You just can't hear me, folks. And
there we are. There we are.
So that is what we call modern internet across the ocean. Yeah. It got
caught on a wave. It's okay.
Yeah, a bunch of dolphins, their sonar intercepted that specific data packet, and just dolphins are hackers. Don't be fooled by those cute little animals.
And drop bears. Got to be careful of drop bears in Australia. I'll leave you all to research what a drop bear is.
Leave them to research.
Yes, I will. I'm not going to say anything.
Don't say anything. But you should look up Finding Nemo. If you guys want to learn more about Australia, just watching Finding Nemo is great.
So true.
Just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming. I can't remember what I was saying. What were we talking about? Oh, that's right. We were talking about the opportunity for IT to actually educate and engage their people so that rather than being scared when the principal walks by, they're actually quite excited about it, and to say, excellent, here's some good information from IT, or they're going to tell us something that's going to help us. So we can see the IS people as helpers. We're laughing.
Yeah. Here's the thing about IS people as helpers. Have you spoken to real cybersecurity practitioners? JJ, you have.
I have.
How many of them give you a calming feeling when you talk with them?
Yeah, I know. There's
no. Just answer my question.
Not many.
Hang on. How many give you a calming feeling when you talk to them?
My personal experience, because I ask some pretty challenging questions to them, they might start off that way, but they'll have that aha moment when they realise that part of their issue with their people is that connection needs to be made with people. So that's where business partnership, that's why I focus on that business partnership. Learn from other areas in the business. So don't go alone. This is not, if cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility, then get everyone involved. IT have a hard enough time as it is. So I think it's very important that people in the IT world understand this is not a negative against them. This is an opportunity for them to engage the people. People are never going to understand the complexities of IT. I'm not going to understand the role of a CISO and what they need to go through and the decisions they need to make. But when it comes to engaging people, how you do it, what works, it's not complex, but it's a whole different set of skills. Communication, engagement, IT can start quite simply by asking questions to their users. So that cybersecurity person who's, trust and verify, don't trust anyone, all my people are, I'm doing my head in and they keep clicking on things and they shouldn't. That's still going to happen unless they change the narrative. And the only way to do that is to engage the people. So if they're not skilled to do it, they need to partner with someone in the organization who is, and make those messages really clear. You'd be surprised what information you get if you actually ask questions.
I completely agree with you. I think one of the problems we have in InfoSec and in IT in general, if you look under that entire umbrella, is we tell people what to do. We don't ask people what to do.
Correct.
We do what we think is best without thinking of how that impacts the folks around us that have to interact with it, right?
Correct.
So we'll buy a complex firewall. We'll buy a complex VPN. We'll do things and we go, oh, this is great, and you give it to an employee and they go, I don't understand what I need to do here. Like, why do I have to enter a username and log in every time to the VPN? Why can't I just hit connect? And you go, yeah, why can't he just hit connect? And someone goes, well, it's more secure.
Sound again. I'm going to blame a kangaroo this time.
You're going to blame a kangaroo this time?
Dolphins? Oh, there you go. You're back. Definitely kangaroo.
We're back. Having some audio issues here today, folks. We really do apologize about that. But this is these are the times we live in. How many people have been? I was on a Zoom call last night with my daughter, and she kept freezing because her home Wi-Fi isn't very good, and I kept taking screenshots of her different facial expressions every time she froze.
She would not be happy about that, James.
She's probably listening to this episode right now, going, "I'm going to kill him when I see him."
That's okay. She can have her opportunity to get you back. Don't worry.
Yeah, she'll probably, she'll put my face on TikTok, which she knows I'm absolutely against.
Note to self, TikTok, James Azar. Excellent.
Note to self, James on TikTok. No. But going back to this whole thing of asking questions, we always look to do things that we feel like are really, really secure without thinking of the user experience.
Correct.
I will say this. I had I was listening to a very interesting conversation when I was in Israel a few years back, and it was with Gil Schwade, the founder of Checkpoint. And it was very interesting to hear him talk that for the last 10 years, all he's cared about is the user experience within Checkpoint.
Yep.
And very rarely do you hear people talk about user experience. When you go to an event, well, when we used to go to large events, now we don't do large events, folks. They don't exist. They're virtual. But when we used to go to large events and you'd sit in a room and you'd watch the speakers speak with their PowerPoint presentations, none of it barely ever did anyone mention user interaction or ease of use by the user. That talk about how great what they're doing is, how it scrapes and it does, and information and dashboards and percentages and risk. But no one ever sits down and he talks about the user experience, not only from the average user, but the InfoSec IT users. Sometimes we're guilty of building technology that's not very user-friendly to the people we expect to use it.
Correct. And it's because questions haven't been asked. There's too many assumptions made that people know what to do. 5 steps of that first part of installing something aren't included because everybody knows that. Everybody in IT knows that. And it's the critical area is collaboration, maybe. That's the key here. That where everyone's at the table, maybe at a distance these days, or they're doing it online. But if they're working towards a common goal, everyone in any business unit, in any organization, cares about their internal customers, their external customers, their data, intellectual property. I mean, people have lost jobs all over the world. So protecting your job right now is even higher than it was before. It's not a matter of, I don't care if I click on something. If you realize what the implications are of doing that, you will pay more attention. So user experience is about thinking of all of the questions that could possibly come up, or the needs and the reasons why, from all of the people in your business. Now, most of the time, from my observations, IT will say, just do it, just roll it out. They'll be fine. It just doesn't happen. It could be maybe 5% of people, they'll be fine, but the rest, no.
Time out. Let me stop you there. A lot of times IT rolls something out because the business is asking IT to roll it out, not because IT really wants to roll it out. So
that's a good point.
I will be the defense attorney for anyone listening in IT who goes, you don't understand the pressure we're under. I do. Trust me, I do. I understand the pressure you're under. I understand people want you to roll stuff out without proper testing. They give it to you 3 days and say 3 days before they want to roll it out and go, roll this out in 3 days. And you're like, that's impossible. Right? Uh-huh. And I think a lot of times also the average user doesn't understand what it takes to deploy a security product, and the weeks and months
Dolphins
of work,
are back, James. Your sound's gone again.
The weeks and months of work, because users can hear us and JJ can't. I know. I can hear you, but you can't hear me, and that's okay. We can. But the users could hear us. I feel like every time I get on a good roll, you're like, I can't hear you. I'm like, you're intentionally doing that to distract me.
Oh, no. I've been caught out. Not at all. No, so you are spot on with that. There's a top-down thing here. This is not just about IT with the users. This is the IT turning around, looking up and saying to the exec teams and the board, this is what's involved. It's hard to push back, though, isn't it? That's a...
Well, it's not hard to push back. In a good, healthy organization, executive leadership expects pushback and expects to be told that while their concept of deploying something, giving us something on Monday and say deploy it by Friday may seem logical, in the IT world, that's illogical. Because it doesn't allow for Q&A, it doesn't allow for controlled testing, controlled deployment. It creates a workforce essentially change in direction, and a lot of different things that you're working on become sidetracked, and are just as critical as this deployment. And so,
Dolphins again.
And so that becomes an issue for them specifically. And as JJ waits to hear back from me, I just want to say a shout out to KnowBe4 for supporting our podcast and their security awareness, and the things that they do. They hire people just like JJ. Can JJ hear us at this point?
Yeah, she can.
And so while I went out, I actually did a little ad for KnowBe4.
Awesome.
That hire people like JJ, and we're going to have a lot of JJ's counterparts on Tech Corner over the next 12 months or so you folks could really kind of get an idea of the thought leadership that exists within KnowBe4. But having said that, I think that's one of the things that really do lack from a vendor perspective in equipping CISOs, which is help me overcome my internal challenges in order to get my projects across the board. And not just your project, but in general, all my cybersecurity projects across the finish line. So often people are so focused on just that one goal, that one task, that one aspect, and they miss everything else.
Dolphins again. Oh, you're back.
I'm back.
Weird with these dolphins. Seriously, we have to do something about them.
Let's have a conversation about dolphins for a minute. Everyone knows that dolphins communicate through sonar.
Yes.
Right? I don't know if there's been a study about sonar and underwater fiber optic lines.
Well, let's start that study. Let's pontificate the fact that the dolphins are actually interrupting this podcast.
Here's what I want. I want the University of Melbourne to hire us so I can go to Melbourne for the period of this research. There's no better place than Melbourne.
You know what? I agree. Melbourne's great. I'm based in Adelaide, so we'll argue there. But I will say something about what's just like in this this episode. There's been technical issues. Before COVID-19, there was a very low tolerance for technical issues. Since then, we are so much more tolerant of dropouts, of screens freezing, of dolphins interrupting, whatever it might be, people walking past, animals up on tables. We really have shifted that level of, I don't even know what it is. Is it tolerance for people being people rather than we have to start the whole thing again because we had some sound issues? I find it amazing.
See,
nothing to do with the topic, but it's amazing.
But I think it does. It has everything to do with the topic.
Ooh.
And I'll tell you why. I'll bring it all together for you. When we talk about zero to hero, we talk about IT stepping up from maybe IT security stepping up from being the here comes the fashion police, here comes the IT police, here comes the security police. Well, when something would go wrong, if you're sitting in a conference room in the office and your conference room software wasn't working, you'd call IT and you'd be like, we're in the middle of a big important meeting, you're costing the company money, and they would hammer down on IT for it. Now, they're like...
Just as you started that, the dolphins came back. I can't hear Jay. There you go. You're back again.
I'm back again.
This is the craziest thing. This is so cool.
But that's the thing is no one quite understands. Before when something would go wrong in the office, you're on a call, you're on a conference call, you're on a video call, you would call IT and hammer them, right? You'd call security and hammer them because something went wrong. Now
you fix it. Yeah.
Right now, this stuff happens, and they're like, "Yep, that's just." You know what? IT isn't perfect. You can't have 100% perfection all the time because it's reliant on so many things. Your computer, internet connection, the time of day you're doing it, and dolphins. They look like cute, innocent, fun animals, but just so you know, dolphins are mean. I saw a National Geographic thing on dolphins.
I cannot imagine a dolphin being mean, James.
So dolphins eat smaller fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. By all means, they're mean because they're destroying families. Little fish families. Sharks are always portrayed as like these really evil fish. No, sharks get a bad rep, right? You can swim by a shark and a shark will do nothing to you.
Because the dolphins in charge. The dolphins have told them everything they need to do.
The dolphins
Maybe we need
have
dolphins.
sonar communication. They're just like human. They read your brainwaves. They go, oh, really?
I suspect this could be the very first cybersecurity podcast that includes dolphins. I'm just going to put it out there.
That is very true. We should just blame the dolphins for everything. You know what? We're going to name this Tech Corner from zero to hero. How dolphins have ruined the internet. And I think that would be a title where everyone would listen to this thing. We might break our download record.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I love it. It's,
how do you so can you hear? Are you hearing dolphins again? Are dolphins
intercepting? I am hearing dolphins.
Yeah, I figured. They make very weird sounds, by the way. Like they do. It's like little peeps, right? It's like little beep 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 beep. It almost sounds like Morse code in some way or another.
It does. It does. It's not nice.
They're not.
Obviously, I'm not sounding like a dolphin. Maybe it's, just the Australian thing. Could be.
I think, is it in Norway or Sweden where they lure dolphins on shore and then like brutally hit them with bats?
No, that's just wrong. Those people need to have a big talking to.
That's bad, but maybe that's why the Nordic
Bad.
countries have great internet.
Yeah, that's. This is a can of dolphins being opened, and there's dolphins everywhere. Oh dear.
I was watching.
I love it.
I was watching The Other Guys on Netflix over the weekend with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell, and there's a scene where Mark Wahlberg tells Will Ferrell, "I'm a lion and I'm hunting a tuna," and he calls Will Ferrell a tuna, and then Will Ferrell comes back and he goes, "A lion in the middle of the ocean? Never! That's impossible." He goes, "But if a lion's in the middle of the ocean, 9 times out of 10, we're the pack of tuna. We're going to eat lion. And once we ate lion, lion's delicious. And now we start to think we want more lion. And we start to develop a method to go on shore to hunt lions so we can eat more lions. And then we get your kids. And we get your wife. We get your brothers."
It's just, how did we get down this particular road, James?
That is just a typical podcast.
It's true.
If you're,
It's true.
Here's the deal. You can go down the road of just, IT zero to hero, but with Dolphins really just impacting our internet connection and our audio, we had to take it there.
We had to. There was no choice.
So how would you?
There was no choice.
So let me ask you this, JJ, as we kind of wrap up our podcast. What are your tips for IT folks as they now plan to go from, I don't want to say zeros because I don't want to call them that, but how do they become heroes now?
Well, if we look at the traditional hero, so let's think about a superhero, whatever your favorite superhero might be. They did something to save the day. They had some superpower. They came in at the last minute and saved whatever it might be, the dolphins. So when we think about cybersecurity specifically and IT, here's an opportunity for them to present, I'm not going to say solutions because that's not the right word, guidance and advice for how to stay safe when it comes to cybersecurity and other elements of security related to IT. Because we are moving to the homeschooling, even though that will change eventually, and we're doing the remote work and that's going to shift back to people going to the office again, the confusion that's there needs clarification. And IT have that chance to, rather than stand in front and direct, sit down with people or Zoom with them, whatever you're using, and have a conversation. Ask specific questions. What worked well during remote work? What didn't work? What do you need moving forward? What systems didn't do the right thing? What access do you need? What did we miss? How can we help you? Get that information, have a look at it, and then create a way forward to say, here are some things we can do to help you. So from a cybersecurity aspect, that education and awareness needs to happen. Some really engaging, unique training that is relevant and ongoing and really sparks the interest of people to understand that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. Help them make better security decisions when it comes to cyber. And then you can get that ongoing management, because there's no fix here. And it would be unfair to say that we're looking at cybersecurity and IT like a Superman. They can fix everything. They can't. These cyber criminals are just getting so much better with what they do. There's never, ever going to be an end to this. All we can do is manage it. So with some KnowBe4, we can train them, and then we can provide them simulated social engineering tests to give them that opportunity to play, and then they'll develop that understanding of what they need to do to be safe. And that's how you look at them and say, wow, thanks to you guys, I now feel safe online.
Yeah. Before we kind of wrap this up, a big shout out to KnowBe4 for supporting our show. You guys can find out more by going to our website, cyberhubpodcast.com. hit the KnowBe4 banner there, and you can get a lot more information. And they have a ton of free resources on their website, by the way, folks, like a ton of them. They're really, they walk the talk in the fact that they have so many free resources on their website that are extremely, extremely helpful in that aspect. JJ, kind of one last kind of sign off thing. And you brought that up, and it's the whole idea of, as we kind of look at this, is it's all right for IT and InfoSec people to push back, and it's okay for them to take a step and educate people, and don't do it by fear. I mean, I think the one thing I would say is don't do it by fear. Don't say if you do this, a hacker's going to do this, but talk about it from a perspective of protecting and defending your family. We all, we're lucky. We work in an industry where we're in technology, but everyone else in a lot of organizations that we deal with don't. They're accountants, they're in marketing, they're in so many other positions, and that's what they really care about. And with that being said, don't strike fear in them, but help them understand. I think the best way I've gotten people to understand cyber and security is by talking about their kids or talking about their family, even their parents.
Dolphins again.
Even their parents. Because the dolphins, they don't love parents. Dolphins destroy parents. They eat families, entire fish families. Dolphins are evil animals, folks. Evil.
No, they're not. They're not evil animals, folks.
See, this is brainwashing. The same reason we think dolphins are good is the same reason we think IT and security people are bad.
Yes, misperceptions.
Yeah.
I've made up a word.
Misconceptions.
Yeah. IT people have a chance, and this is it. And I think everybody does, really. Back to zero. Everyone's back to zero. And we can all be heroes, really.
Yes, we can. Folks, the awesome, the magnificent JJ, thank you for coming on our Tech Corner and being the first guest from KnowBe4 on the show.
Always happy to, James. Nice to see you again.
And JJ and I will have some very cool announcements coming to you guys. Irregardless of this podcast, I think I said the right word here. I've always tried to be fancy with my dictionary. I love it how sometimes I listen to rappers and they pull out like these awesome words, and you're like, I wonder if like when he wrote that down, he had like a dictionary or like something.
Dolphins are back.
Dolphins are, damn those dolphins. Dolphins, I'm coming for you right now. Flying wherever there are any sort of flights that I can get to a dolphin, and I'm going to take a whole herd down. It'll be a dolphin massacre.
No, it won't.
No, it won't. No, it won't. Have you ever had dolphin? It's delicious. It tastes like chicken.
No. Everything tastes like chicken. Have you had crocodile?
Tastes like chicken.
Yep.
Frog legs. Tastes like chicken.
Yeah. Tiny chickens.
I wonder if chickens had anything to do with this. Like, chickens seem like these like vulnerable little animals, but maybe they're like dominant, like straight up, like they're like.
If you were in the vicinity, maybe it could be chickens, but based on the other side of the world, I'm definitely going with dolphins and the sonar issues. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm thinking that also, like, chickens, they seem so helpless and like poor, but chickens are trying to get us to eat everything but them. They're like, look, crocodile tastes just like chicken. Go get those assholes. Frog legs taste like chicken. Go get frogs. Leave us chickens alone.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, folks, on behalf of myself, on behalf of JJ, I want to say thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And on behalf of the Dolphins, all I want to say is go F yourselves. We'll be back with more Tech Corners next week. Until then, folks, enjoy the rest of your day, evening, afternoon, wherever you're listening to this. This is a podcast, not a news broadcast, so I don't know what time of day it is that you're listening to it, but I will wish you to stay cyber safe.
Bye.